All right, guys, it is Friday, June 24th, 2022. So with this heat this time of year and this dark brown roof on this carport, it is getting pretty hard to work out here mid-afternoon. So I'm not getting near as many hours in as I would like, but it's not so bad when you get out here and you get started of a morning and it warms up throughout the day. You know, I get acclimated to it, so I don't notice it being that hot. But if I get out here too late, it's so hot out here, it's pretty difficult to get started. So kind of sucks. It's just making the project drag on further because of the heat, but at least it's not snowing. You know, I can live with that. I've been using, these are old sleeves that I cut off my old t-shirts. I use these for headbands. I know it's redneck, but it works. It works pretty good, actually. But anyway, I've had a big mess. I've had nothing but problems trying to get parts for this truck. I've been having salesman issues at the local parts store trying to get stuff. I don't know, I swear some of these guys, they don't listen. So I ran parts yesterday morning. I borrowed my mom and dad's car to go get parts that I'd ordered the day before, and I went down there yesterday morning to get them. I told the guy on the phone I wanted a cork transmission pan gasket. I go down there to get my pan gasket and it's in a little bitty tiny box, and I knew it wasn't cork. I open it up, pull it out, and it's a rubber gasket. I know there's guys out there that swear by rubber gaskets, you know, on their transmission pans. They don't ever have a leak, but I can tell you, every time that I've ever tried to use one of them, they leak. And it's not from over torquing. I usually torque them to the manufacturer's recommended torque specs. It just, they leak, and I don't know why. So if I've ever used a cork gasket on my transmission pans, they don't ever leak. And I put them on bone dry. I don't put any kind of silicone or anything on them. So don't know what's up with that. But when I went down there yesterday morning and he had the wrong pan gasket, I had to order this one and it came in at 11. So I was down there at like 9:30 a.m. So I had to turn around and go back down there later to get the pan gasket. So I pretty much didn't get a whole lot done. I can't come out here and get super dirty and greasy and then climb in my mom and dad's car to go down there to get parts. So I just didn't get really anything done yesterday. I tried to do small stuff, so at least I got a little bit of stuff done. But the plan for today is to try to get the transmission bolted to the engine and maybe put in the truck, but I've got a couple things that I forgot I needed to do to the truck. For whatever reason, this model of truck, the cross member, you cannot get to the rear pan bolts to pull the transmission pan off the truck with it in it. I guess they want you to remove the cross member just to drop the transmission pan out, which is silly. I think the pan will come out with it on there, but you can't get to the bolts. You could probably get to them with a wrench, but I'm not down for doing that. So before I pulled the motor and trans out of the truck, I'm notched or marked, scribed on the cross member some half circles, and I'm going to get under there with a plasma cutter and I'm going to cut those out. That way I can get a long extension and a socket up there and get those pan bolts out. So I need to do that. And then here's another thing I found, which now it really makes sense. So the whole time I've owned this truck, which has been, man, I don't even know, 4 years maybe. I was thinking it was 3, but it may be 4 years I've had this truck. The rear brakes never seemed like they worked on the truck. So I just assumed maybe the rear rubber brake hoses collapsed inside, which I've had happen, several times through the years with vehicles. So I just assumed that was what the problem was, until I noticed the lines here. So these are, this one of them is the vent for the charcoal canister to go to the gas tank, and the others are brake lines, and these dudes are kinked. This top one here is going to the charcoal canister. It doesn't look too bad, but the one on the very bottom is super kinked. You can feel it, and I'm pretty sure that is probably the rear brake line. So, well, I know, it's a rear brake line, but I think that's the one that is super kinked. Now, I don't know how this happened. I did not do this. I actually went back and watched one of my older videos, and it shows, before I pulled the engine and trans out, you can clearly see that already like that. So I don't know how that happened. I know it hadn't happened since I've had it, but so you can see a bend here, which most likely goes up here, and then that little bend there goes up in here somewhere. So I'm going to try to take these bolts out today and finagle these and get them unkinked. I don't know if I can or not, so I really hate to, cut that bad spot out and put a union in there, but if I have to, I will. But I think the vapor will probably be okay, but I can probably get a lot of the kink out of them. But hopefully after this, maybe I'll have rear brakes that actually work good. But so anyway, I need to do the brake lines and I need to do the cross member notching before I set these in. So probably ought to do that first. It's going to suck doing plasma cutting on my back underneath the truck, but it's got to be done. So engine's painted. I got the valve covers painted and installed. Some of the stuff I've bolted on, and again, I'm not painting all these parts. It's just going to take way too much time. I mean, look at the truck. It's not a show truck. I don't need that engine looking, show car-esque under there. But there's lots of little loose ends that I have to tie up. I tried to put a micro sleeve on the balancer, which I have put micro sleeves on a lot of balancers through the years, but I only bought one, and wouldn't you know, I got it when the first hit that I put it on there, it went crooked, and by the time I got it all the way on there, it had a hump in it, so it just wouldn't seal. So at that point, I decided just to go ahead and buy a brand new Dorman balancer. So this is the correct balancer for the truck. It looks almost identical to the OEM one that come off of it. It has a huge groove worn in it from the front seal, but these 305s, the timing tab is in the center instead of off over to the side like the old school ones. And when you put it on there with the Woodruff key at an angle like it's supposed to be, it's on 0. So I know that's the right balancer, so that'll be nice. No micro sleeve required. So I've got the Excel coil out here. I'm going to be putting it in. I have to take these nuts and bolts off here and replace that coil, so with those brackets, so it'll bolt to the intake. So that's another little small project I need to do. I did get the fan clutch swapped out. This is a thermal fan clutch. The fan clutch was okay in the truck. I mean, it didn't free spin, like you couldn't hit it with your finger and it spin forever. It had a lot of oil buildup around it, which is a good sign that, the seals are starting to fail in it. So I went ahead and replaced it. It was like 40 bucks, which kind of sucks, but anyway, I now have a new thermal fan clutch, because I don't ever remember hearing that fan clutch, so I don't know if it was a non-thermal that was in it or it just didn't work anymore, because if you've got a thermal fan clutch, you can usually hear it kicking on and off sometimes. So anyway, I like the thermal better. I got the water pump painted. I got the studs out of the old water pump reinstalled. So this thing is pretty much ready. I've got the plug in it, but it's kind of funny at Summit Racing, where I bought this pump for my wife's 55 four-door. I decided to go ahead and use this pump because it's here and I don't have to spend any more money right now. I basically substituted a new balancer for a water pump is what I did, so to save money, because I'm nowhere near needing a water pump for her car yet. So anyway, in Summit's website, for whatever reason, it says not compatible with 87 GMC truck. This is a long water pump. This is clockwise rotation. I even took the back off the pump before I painted it to check it, which you'll see that video coming up. I've got a little video clip comparing these, and if you guys notice anything or have any info on that, comment below. This impeller is angled the same direction as the original. I've got both of them sitting side by side. This one has a couple more fins on it than the original, but it does say standard flow at Summit. But it says it's not for this truck or an 85 Chevy Monte Carlo. So I don't know why this wouldn't be compatible with those vehicles, because it looks identical to the original. And the impeller is going the same direction, so it's not, it says clockwise rotation in the description. So I don't know, now I'm a little worried about it, but I guess we'll find out. The only thing I have not checked is base height from the bottom to the top of this. With the old one, maybe it's a different snout length or something that I'm not aware of, but I am gonna try that and see. The only thing different really between the two was it doesn't have the weep hole in it right here like it does down here. I mean, on the other one it has both of them. This one only has the one on the bottom, so I don't really understand that. But this thing's all, pretty much ready to bolt on. I want to put the balancer on first though. Transmission, I got to change the I put a filter in it and the new pan gasket and bolt the pan back on, and then the tranny's pretty much done. I've replaced all the exterior seals on it. Put a new front pump seal in it, tail shaft seal. I put a new seal on the TV cable, shift shaft seal, and I done the speedometer housing seal. So it should be pretty sealed up, and a new dipstick grommet down there. So now here's where it really got irritating yesterday. So the filter that come out of that transmission's right here. This is the one out of that transmission. And what's funny is on the valve body, there's a little metal tang, you know, that's sticking up, and that's to hold the back of the filter in place. So when you buy a filter kit, which I bought a Power Torque, this is the first one I bought, which I actually got this one a long time ago, and it's been behind the seat of the truck. When I found out you got to have the cross member out of the truck, I never did change the fluid. So this is the filter that they send you, and it is shorter, so the tab doesn't even go near close to the back of it. But when I put this in that transmission and get this seated, the pan won't bolt on. It's sticking up at the front. So I don't know what's up with that, but that is not. This is for that truck with a 700R4 transmission. So I had him look up 1985 Camaro, like an IROC Z with a 700R4, and it shows the same part number. So I know that's a 700R4. I've built one before, and you know, it's not the correct filter. So I told him, get me a filter, because it looks like a 204R filter to me. Just looking at it, it looked like it was out of a 204R, which I just rebuilt one of those like a year or two ago for a Regal I had. So I told him, you know, look it up for 85 Monte Carlo with a 204R overdrive. This is a filter. It's just identical to the one that come out of that transmission. So I don't understand that, but whatever. So I mean, that's the exact filter. So 204R filter for a 700R4. I don't get it. And the tab will be on the right spot. So that was kind of interesting. I'm going to have to make a note of that and put it in the glove box, so I'll remember that if I ever change a fluid and filter kit again. So this is another fiasco that happened. I called 2 days ago. I ordered a rubber pan gasket. I went down there yesterday morning with my mom and dad's car that I borrowed to pick it up, and it was a rubber one. They did not order cork. So apparently he didn't read, or he just got what he wanted for me. So I had to turn around and go back at 11 a.m. for him to order in a cork. So I was pretty upset. You know, pretty much wasted a day running parts twice. But I went ahead and bought a Wix, thinking that maybe it was maybe the Power Torque wasn't the right one or something. Maybe they've got it off, but the Wix is identical to the Power Torque, the shape and everything. So I'm going to take this Wix filter back and get my money back. That filter kit for that transmission was $30 just because of that name right there. So I think that's pretty ridiculous for a transmission filter kit for a price. So, well, here's the water pumps with the back plates off of them, and the impellers the same shape pretty much. This one has 2 more blades on it than this one does, so that's kind of cool, which I'm assuming that'd probably be better flow. I don't know. I have never run a more flowing water pump on any of my engines. I always buy just stock replacement water pumps, but hopefully that looks okay. I mean, I can get another water pump from O'Reilly's if I need to, but I don't know why Summit's website says that one will not work with these vehicles. It doesn't look like it's reverse rotation. It says in the description clockwise rotation, so, and that's the way the old ones are, so I don't know, man. All right, guys, going to show you something on this intake here. So this is the original intake off the truck. I talked about this in a video, I don't remember if it was my last one or the one before, but this originally takes a steel tube here, and it takes an O-ring fitting on it to go to the back of the intake port. And I decided, basically, instead of putting a new O-ring on there that, you know, this is kind of rusty looking, I'm just going to put a regular heater hose fitting and put a new piece of heater hose on. Instead of having 2 connection points, it'll just have, or 4, I guess, it'll have 2. One at the heater core and one at the intake. So I just kind of did it for simplicity and just less of a mess, I guess. Although getting an O-ring and putting on there wouldn't be that big a deal. But this is the original fitting out of the truck, and if you'll notice that hole in that is, I mean, it's not tiny by any means, but I went through my fitting drawer over there, and I've got this regular heater hose outlet here, and then I had one here with a bigger hole, and then I had this one with a giant hole in it, which this one may be for 3/4 anyway, but I am putting 5/8 on it. So out of the two that I had that takes a 5/8 hose, this one, the hole center caliper is the same as one inside there. Now, here's what I've always thought has been kind of crazy since the 90s, was this is a port. This is the rear of the intake. Your distributor goes here. So it has a coolant passage in here for this hose fitting. But this is the rear of the intake, and it has a little bitty tiny hole in it. So I just never understood why they did that, but you know, the heater works in the truck, and that's the way they are. It's just kind of a strange situation, I guess you'd say, but it works. I mean, the heater works great in the truck, so thought I'd show that. All right, guys, so I'm getting ready to notch my cross member out, my transmission cross member. I've got some half circles drawn out on it so I can access, you know, the transmission pan at the back for a ratchet, you know, socket and extension to get up through there. From the factory you can't get to them, which I think is kind of silly. And I do have the truck jacked up in the back, and yes, I have ramps under it. This truck sits so high that even if it did fall off a jack without ramps under it, it's not going to crush me. It sets too high. I can climb under it with ease, and just getting it up there a little bit further so that I have a little bit more arm room, I guess you'd say. Anyway, I'm going to get to cutting. Man, I tell you, that was the best 300 bucks that I ever spent, I think, is how much that was. It's from Jegs. It's a Cut 40 plasma cutter. It comes with an adapter plug to go to 115 or 230, and I've got it on 230, so I'm running a desiccant filter on the back because if you run your air hose straight into it, it'll get moisture in it and ruin it. So that thing works pretty nice for the price. It's never let me down yet. Alright, if you can see it, I got it 5 holes notched out back there. That one's on an angle, so I had to do it a lot wider. But I actually made them little bit bigger than my scribe mark, just so I'd have plenty of room. At least get up there with my, you know, fingers if I had to get them started or whatever, which I'd probably use a socket on an extension. But anyway, I cleaned up the cut marks with a burr bit, a very large one on my die grinder right here. And then I finished it off with a Scotch it disc, really nice around the edge, kind of chamfer the edges and take off the sharp corners so I don't cut myself. And then I slathered it up with a good helping of spray paint black to get it so it don't rust on me. But so now I got a notched cross member. Now I can take the transmission pan off the truck to change the fluid and filter in the future if I need to. How cool is that? So somebody was telling me in the comments that you're not supposed to use gaskets on these manifolds to the head, and I always have. Out of all the engines I've put in, small blocks, I've never had a manifold leak ever after I put them back on. You would be having a really tough time to bolt this up to that head metal on metal with them manifolds in that kind of shape where they're pitted that bad. All these deep pits in here, especially right there, there's no way that's going to seal on that head. It's going to leak. You have to run a gasket. Now, no doubt if somebody used paper gaskets, like old school paper header gaskets, oh yeah, it probably would leak after time. But I've never had trouble out of those soft metal ones. So I'm using gaskets. I don't care if you guys use them or not, but I will be. And I can guarantee you, if I laid a straight edge across that, there's no way that after that many decades of heat cycles that is going to be true and straight. So yeah, I'm going to be using gaskets. Wow, that turned out to be a mess, which is kind of common on the old exhaust manifolds like this when there's no divider in between. So I got this one and this one to line up, but this one was too far that way. So I took these two nut things I had here and I filed one down, or ground one down, and then I put a notch in it so it would fit on this. It has a casting line down the center, and then I ground off the numbers and letters or whatever on the head of the bolts would be slick on there. So I held on to that and then wrenched this one, and it spread it out enough to get the bolts in it. Golly, that was a mess. Can't believe I had to get all kinds of redneck on it. Well, might as well keep that out for the other side. I'm sure it's going to be the same way. All right, I wanted to put the manifolds on before I got them in the truck, and I'm glad I did because I run into that mess. So I found, I think it was this side, had a Healy coil in this one, and this one the stud was broke off in. So I drilled and tapped it back to 3/8 by 16, but you know, a lot of the threads were kind of jacked, so I couldn't use the factory thick washer on the head. I had to get it to go down further to grab more thread. So, but it still works. So now I'll work on this side. Yay! All right, I got lucky on this side. I didn't have to put the spreader in there to get them on there, so that was kind of nice. This side takes two studs at the front for the AC bracket. The rest of them don't take it, which is kind of strange. This front one was gone, but there was a stud here, but it wasn't using anything. So I dug through my box of small block factory hardware and found the correct manifold bolts and replaced them basically. So I used anti-seize on the bolt heads, or the threads, so it wouldn't, you know, get stuck in there again. So I guess that's it. Manifolds are on, and I'm getting closer.